Chapter 54 to 55, the story behind it. A few days have passed since then. After Pride enjoyed his time with Whitebeard and talked with him about many things, he made his way to leave. Throwback, a few days ago. Pride and Whitebeard stood face to face. On the shore. It was time to bid farewell. They shook hands. It was really nice meeting you. Next time you can't afford to hold back. Pride smiled. Gee rarer. I can't wait to see that. See you in the new world, Pride. Throwback end. Pride was sailing along in his boat. His wounds were only superficial at best. With some alcohol and bandages, it was only a matter of time before they healed. But many other things happened on the sea. Something that also happened a few days ago. Throwback. Huh. They're not following me? Well, why not? Never mind. There. After locating the Tenryubito's position, Zephyr went to him immediately. The Tenryubito and his guards were unconscious. So he took him on his shoulder and dragged the two who were supposed to protect him. He set out at once. Every second counted for him. What if the two pirates changed their minds and joined forces? If that happened, then he would not be able to survive. Besides, the protection of the Tenryubito was of the highest priority. He woke up the remaining marine personnel on the island and ordered them to set sail. A few minutes later, on a marine boat, MHH, uttered St. Jalmac. He came to his senses, but not on his chariot or his slaves. He was dragged. On someone's shoulder? Somehow he was in the air. Zephyr tried to place the Tenryubito in an empty bed. Unfortunately, he was out of luck. This one regained consciousness. You, did you touch me? You lowly piece of shit dares to touch a god. Drool and spit rained down. Zephyr breathed a sigh of relief. What luck! Everything ended up in his air helmet. After that, he let go of him. The Tenryubito stepped back a few meters. Why don't you kneel? Without a moment's hesitation, he reached for his weapon. Since the Tenryubitos are usually very stupid and naive, he did not know that the Vice Admiral had been sent to protect him. Since he did not recognize him, he considered it an act of disrespecting a god. Damn! He glared at the Tenryubito. How dare you? Boom. His revolver fired a shot. However, nothing happened to Zephyr. Step by step he approached him. Stay away from me. When Zephyr feigned a blow, the Tenryubito lost consciousness. Sigh. I hope you don't wake up until we arrive. Then he took out a transponder snail. Apururu. Fleet Admiral Toshiro speaking. It's me, Zephyr. Oh, Zephyr. Did you reach the Tenryubito? I know he's going to get on your nerves, but just bear with it. Sigh. He's lying unconscious next to me right now. What? The Fleet Admiral shouted through the transponder snail. Sigh. Things are different than they seem. Then he told the Fleet Admiral, one by one, what had happened. That a pirate with a low bounty had appeared, and that he didn't match his bounty image. And that he had fought him. He was very powerful, Toshiro-san. He could use all kinds of haki, and even some of the advanced forms. His devil fruit is also very destructive. Almost as dangerous as Whitebeard's. I understand. When you return, tell us what he looks like now. Then we will put a new bounty on his head. But if the fight was relatively even, why did you escape? Sigh. I wanted to get back to that. Just as the battle was about to reach its peak, Whitebeard appeared out of nowhere. It was too risky, especially when the life of the Tenryubito comes first. It was a good decision. Take good care of him. Nothing must happen to him. Clack. Throwback end. Jaya is a spring island in paradise that once had the shape of a skull and was much larger than it is today. For 100 years ago, it was the home of the Shandya people. Today, it is known as a lawless area where pirates roam. Jaya consists mostly of tropical rainforests, home to giant insects and the elusive birds of the south. The island itself has the shape of a jagged U. The truth about Jaya is that geographically, it is only half the island it was 400 years ago. Originally, Jaya had the shape of a skull, while today's Jaya has only the jaws of the skull. Since more than half of the island was thrown into the White Sea by the knock-up current, made possible by seismic activity that shook the island's crust, only the part that formed the mouth of the skull remains. The pirates, enjoying their stay there, saw a boat approaching. It was fast. Second by second, the boat neared the island. Look over there. There's a boat approaching. THH. The next one who will probably not leave the island alive. Fufufu. I hope it's a woman. Then I can enjoy myself before. The boat arrived on Jaya's coast. TZZ. That's a man, isn't he? At least he looks hurt, said the pirate who saw Pride. Bandages wrapped around his body. Pride ignored them and continued to walk. He still knew the island from the anime, and as far as he could see, almost nothing had changed. Even the bar where Luffy and Zoro were eating was still visible to him. Hey, come here. Before he could finish his sentence, he and his colleagues lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground. I don't have time for this, Pride muttered. A few minutes later, thud. Pride walked into the pub. Everything was exactly as shown in the anime. Apart from the people, of course. Pride took a seat in the very front and ordered a bottle of booze. As he did so, he overheard the pirates talking about him. They were discussing the best way to rob him. One even spoke of selling him. So this is what it feels like to be in a lawless zone. A few minutes went by, and Pride slowly drank from his alcohol bottle. Tastes pretty good. During that time, many seagulls flew over the island. The three from the shore regained consciousness and picked up what the flying animals had dropped. Breathing irregularly, one of them ran to the bar. That person looked familiar. Meanwhile, several pirates rose from their seats. They approached Pride. They drew their guns and swords. The bartender just sighed. For him, this was a common thing. Hey, if you can afford the booze, you can spare us some, right? Gahaha. Another pressed his revolver against Pride's head. We're talking to you. Hello, have you lost your vocal cords because of the fear? Before Pride could act, the front door was flung open. Full of longing, he gasped for air. Damien, what's going on? Why such tension? Sweat trickled down Damien's forehead. His gaze was only forward, toward the unknown. He slowly unfolded the piece of paper in his hand, the one he had crumpled earlier. Stuttering, he read what was written on it. Dead or alive. Pride. 1,049,000,000 belly. And pointed his finger at Pride. The people who originally tried to rob him. They were so terrified. They couldn't move. Such a sum. That's something you'd only see in the new world. And they've never been there. We're sorry. And everyone ran out. It went up. Sigh, Zephyr. So you weren't in a good mood after all, Pride muttered, continuing to drink from his liquor. Somewhere in the new world. Wahaiche. Rayleigh. Come here, come here. Huh. What makes you so cheerful, Roger? The seagulls also fluttered over the new world's oceans, spreading the news. Pride's new bounty. He has surpassed even Gabon. He must be quite strong by now. Wahaiche. Let me see. A smile crossed Rayleigh's face. Hahaich. You know what that means, don't you, Roger? We will meet him soon in the new world. Karaibari Island, New World. This island was a haven for pirates. There was no marine personnel to be seen for miles. Not even civilians. Some kind of settlement was evident, supposedly the dwelling place of these pirates. At the very end, one could spot a large castle. There was a throne in the said castle. A man was sitting on it. By One Piece standards, he was of normal height. He was about 2.70 meters tall. He was dressed entirely in black. It was dark outside, and there were flashes of lightning. This revealed his crimson eyes. He looked down at something he held in his hand. Pride. 1,049,000,000 belly bounty. Can he get in the way of my plans? Him and the Roger pirates. He couldn't concentrate on that for long, because someone knocked at the door. Come in. The door, which was more like a gate, opened slowly. The room was entered by one of his commanders. What's the matter? Why are you disturbing me? He exclaimed fiercely from his throne. Captain. Sorry about that, but another Sphinx pirate has been spotted nearby. Sigh. What shall we do, Captain? The captain grinned broadly and burst out laughing. Kriaiche. Shinwa di Himon. Come, this time I'm going to kill you. Then he looked at his subordinate. Get ready. Intercept them on their way. Leave no one alive. In the process, his conqueror's haki erupted. A red aura emanated from him. His officer had to use all his strength to keep himself on the ground, so as not to be thrown off. It will be done, he said as the sweat trickled down his forehead. Then everything went back to normal. The officer got up and left the room. Meanwhile, many things were going through his mind. Even though he is our captain, Ishinakuma is truly terrifying. Hakanosu Island. A man was standing there, drenched in blood. All the pirates who stood in his way had been slaughtered. There was no trace of them left. Nobody would recognize their corpses. Step by step, he approached the island's inner core. The island was not large, but it was not small either. Arg! Kill the invader! Someone shouted. A number of pirates rushed at him. They attacked him from all sides, coated with armament haki. They faced a man, an all-powerful one. And though it would have been easy for this man to incapacitate the pirates, he chose not to. He loved to see the despair on their faces. Grinning broadly, he pulled the sword back out of his opponent's throat. Blood splattered on his face. He used his tongue to taste. It was heavenly for him. The look on his opponent's face, knowing that he was going to die. And of course the blood. After a while, there were no more enemy pirates living on the island. The rain poured down upon him. His hair, which was usually so firm, became softer and softer. And then his blood-red hair tumbled downward. Soon, then I will carry out my plans. He closed his eyes for a moment, enjoying the silence. He couldn't resist laughing. Zahahahaha. Back in paradise, a few days before the new bounties were published, a meeting of the Marine's highest echelons was scheduled. This happened shortly after Zephyr arrived. Meeting room, Marineford. 7 people were sitting in a large room. They were some of the most powerful people in their society. Although there were other powerful people, they were not present. Zephyr, I have just received a report that this Pride and Whitebeard are no longer on that island. There has been no sighting of them. Sigh. Fleet Admiral. I thought so. Bwahoiche. Isn't that the one who was on Roger's ship back then? Laughed Garp. Behave yourself, Garp, Sengoku whispered, sitting next to him. Oi, oi. I always act well, he said, looking into Sengoku's eyes and pursing his lips. Sengoku, seethed with anger again. How could someone be that rude? Watch your manners, both of you. Zephyr shouted from the side. Garp stuck out his tongue and covered one eyelid. On both Sengoku's and Zephyr's foreheads, a bulging vein was visible. That's enough, said Toshiro, the fleet admiral. Simultaneously, he radiated a dominating aura. Garp and the others fell into silence. Zephyr, Say it again so everyone knows. Zephyr once again told everything from his perspective. Admiral Kong heaved a sigh. As it seems, he is not yet able to coat himself with Conqueror's haki. Then he looked around. Wouldn't it be better to get rid of him first? Otherwise, he will become a nuisance like Himon, Roger, and the others. The others nodded, agreeing with Admiral Kong. This time, Admiral Zenji's voice rang out. Midori? Is there any sign of that pirate? The one who inflicted these wounds on you? Sigh. I'm afraid not, he said dejectedly. I really looked everywhere. In the first half, in the New World. He's like a ghost, invisible and untraceable. Admiral Zenji then looked a bit disconcerted. Midori, I know you have become stronger in the past few years, but years have passed for him too, and I'm sure he has become stronger as well. He looked deeply into the green-haired man's eyes. Wouldn't it be better if Garp or Sengoku kept you company? Toshiro's voice sparked in between. Zenji is right. We may be the most powerful force, but we can't risk losing you, Midori. Then he glanced over. Sengoku, from now on, you will accompany Admiral Midori when he embarks on his hunt. I will, Fleet Admiral, Sengoku replied. Toshiro sighed and glanced at Zenji. And you, prepare to put an end to this pride. Kong is right in what he says. Before he fully masters the Conqueror's haki, it is better to eliminate him once and for all. Got it. Then the Fleet Admiral rose to his feet. This conference is hereby concluded. Sengoku sighed. He liked Admiral Midori, but sailing blindly across the oceans in pursuit of a pirate, he'd searched for years in vain, didn't seem very promising to him. Anything wrong, Sengoku? Sengoku, who had briefly looked down with his eyes closed, opened them. The first thing he saw when he looked up, it was Garp. He was just a few centimeters away from his face. He made circular movements with his tongue. Garp. And so Sengoku chased after Garp.